step into the lab, lights hum like a starship dock. Pine logs stacked like data banks in a cube block. I calibrate climates while the timeline bends, writing fungal code loops only mycelium sends. I navigate ecosystems with instinctive precision. Every egg played a portal to a parallel vision. Mentorships spin up like reactors at dawn. You want a culture revolution, then you better respond. We fracture the boundaries of the natural order, make Reishi bloom sideways like a space-time border. I'm an Appalachian alchemist, wild ridge born, with a druid's intuition and a mind full of spores.
Keep spawning culture.
We're the network underfoot, the unseen sculpture.
Keep spawning culture.
Well, hello. Am I coming through? 1 2 1 2 test. Hey, I'm coming through. Awesome. Hope y'all are doing well. All 6 of you. It's growing. I know. Well, Merry Christmas. Hey, look, see, we got Christmas. Christmas is here. I was a little late. Well, Samantha did the entire tree, so. But I helped by making sure it was in frame for the camera. Hey, look, we even have our... Oh, I didn't realize she put 2 of them up there. The nutcrackers. What's up, Me-Town? Well, I don't have a lot going on other than holiday stuff. We got the same old with orders and all that kind of thing. Been talking about some interesting things. Oh, Everything Mushrooms announced today that they're closing. I thought that was interesting. That place has been a staple in the mushroom world for a long time, and the that was one of the first places I ever went to get mushroom stuff. So when I first started, it's in the frame. I look squished, do I? Because of the tree? I guess I mean, whatever. It doesn't make it look like there's a huge empty space back there. Though you can see Teddy in his shelving cave. He's got a perfectly good kennel right here by my feet. Does he use the perfectly good kennel? He does not. He wants to sit on the box of magic cards and ruin the box. What's up, Scuba Frog Man? Evening, Andrew. I'm so lucky. MC him live stream and Spawn work at the same time. Heck yeah. There you go. I was having fun back there in the lab today. The bioreactors, the aerated reactors from class, from the liquid culture deep dive class. It's always one of those things. I forget how much I love aerated liquid culture. I blame aquaculture. When I first started, my first biology-based industry that I was in after I dropped out of college was aquaculture. And the bubbles. And I love the bubbles. I love hearing the bubbles. I love the hum of the machinery. I love the glop, 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 glop. You know, what's the other? Well, we did have tangs. So we raised clownfish and primarily, which was found in, and then the tang dory. Is that what you're talking about? Oh, you're talking about the bubbles in the fish tank where he goes, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Yes, I'm definitely like that. Absolutely. I love me some bubbles. But the area of liquid culture is bubbling like crazy. Yeah, that's a yellow tang. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the bubbles guy's a yellow tang. Dory's a blue tang. Incidentally, there was, I think when I was there, they'd bought in a bunch of yellow tangs to try to breed them because there were restrictions being put on the fishing and capture of them. And that was part of their Sustainable Islands project, was to get those. They're trying to get to where there, very little adult fish being taken off the reefs and that kind of stuff. So yeah, the hobbyist market's helping to fuel the sustainability. Yeah. I see the Mycologium that way a lot too, where we have a lot of support from people who are hobbyists and interested in it. So, but yeah, we've been working on a lot of liquid culture pools lately. Actually, I need to get even more stuff shipped out. We've been shipping like crazy, and we're still behind, is what Samantha said. Yeah. So Well, I'm here for everybody's questions, Q&A, so y'all can start spitting those out whenever you want if you've got questions. If you're just listening, doing some spawn work and that kind of stuff, I understand, and I will just jabber on about things that I think are cool. I might even roll some cigars with my Captain Black pipe tobacco. You buy it by the tin. And I reward myself with my little cigars whenever I do good work. So I'm doing good work. I went through today and rearranged the slant library, and that took up a fair amount of time today, just getting all that stuff. But it was creeping out everywhere in every space in the fridge, and we were having a lot of cultures just thrown in wherever. So we ended up having, the Hericium and the specialties and everything was mixed. So I ended up creating spaces for the specialties by themselves, the Hericiums by themselves, the spalting strains by themselves, and oysters by themselves. I would like to have gone in and further refined that to where golden oysters and blue oysters and all that were separate. But for now, just getting them all in the same space, that's going to save me a ton of time. We have so many slants, and that is the way I like it. A nice, big, fat library to play with. So we have our liquid culture deep dive class that we had was a success, I feel like. Everyone seemed like they had a good time. So Samantha was able to help with this one. So she did about half the class, I think. And that's good because she's actually the one that does a lot of our traceability and shipping and even parts of our quality control and rapid backup system. So we have a rapid liquid culture backup protocol that we do that we covered in the class. And we did aeration, liquid culture to bulk, showed an automatic syringe puller that we had built, and all kinds of things. So, and people were like talking about how fast our syringe puller was. And I was like, yeah, it's amazing how fast it is, especially with a two-person team. I think Samantha and I were able to pull about 200 syringes in 30 minutes with that puller. So it's a big boon if you're doing liquid culture. It actually has us really considering like some of the possibilities of the liquid culture industry, which is very immature in the American continent. The Asian economies like the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Koreans already make extensive use of liquid culture fermentation. And then I know in places in Eastern Europe, and I think Germany, Pilzform, or something like that. They do a shiitake slurry when they're doing liquid, and they do like pretty much all liquid culture to bulk. And shiitake is one of the big ones. That's a liquid culture to bulk mushroom. And gnocchi is another one. Lion's mane oyster is still, I don't think, done big time with liquid culture to bulk. I don't know. My Moon Pearls bioreactor, that's the aerated. I'm going to pull that tomorrow. I'm going to get blocks in the autoclave right now. They're getting pulled out to be so the autoclave can be restocked. And then they go in the lab, and I'll use the aerated LC to inoculate about 15 blocks or so. Because I made the Moon Pearls. I made a 2-liter bioreactor, which really only holds about 1,500 milliliters. So that was my small reactor I did for the class. I did a small, medium, and large. The large being a 10-liter. Though I thought about doing the 20-liter, but it was so big on the table that it was not easy to get the camera work on it. So, but I'm going to take that and go liquid culture and see how the Moon Pearls respond to a liquid culture to a bulk inoculation. I think it'll do fine since it's a King Blue derivative. So I think it'll be quite smooth. Oh, we got a couple people here. Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas to you too. I forgot. I should have started the stream saying Merry Christmas. I didn't even think about that. And I'm getting to the age where pretty soon I think I'll be able to start playing Santa Claus. Oh, see, I can do it, especially if I do it loud. Cool, crazy juggler. Welcome to the stream. Do you have any suggestions for growing cordyceps in jars or small containers? Also, can you replace the nutritional yeast or anything else when doing them on brown rice? Thanks. So, tips, suggestions for the container, or just, okay. So, I'm more of a white rot specialist. I am working on cordyceps, and I have grown cordyceps. I would say so some of the people that have taught me a lot about what I know is like Sam from over at Shroom Squatch. He does really good cordyceps. Khan from USA Cordyceps. So you pay attention to those guys. As far as small containers go, you can buy deli containers, like the soup containers. You can buy like 32-ounce ones or smaller, really cheap from places like Uline and Granger. You can buy a whole case for pennies, pennies per. And then you have, sorry, beard's getting caught in my mic. You have the unicorn bags, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people do them in trays. I've never understood why you couldn't just lay the bag on its back. That's the way I do koji. And so I thought you could probably just do it the way you do koji. And you're going to have an uneven airflow, but I don't know. I'm not really quite sure why they don't do it just like that. Just do it in the unicorn bag, inoculate it, close it, seal it, lay it on its back, shake it till it's even, throw it on a shelf. Now that said, as far as your nutritional yeast, you can use Peptone. Peptone would make a good one. The thing about cordyceps is after meat. Egg. Honestly, if I was going to do it, I'd probably just crack an egg or two in a bag full of brown rice. Calculate out my percentage of water. An easy way to do that would be to take a cup of rice, right? And then add your water, this much kind of thing, and weigh it between each step, and then you know how much your water that you're adding to get that fluffy rice that you cook like in a rice cooker. What, Samantha? Yeah, a lot of people have seen a lot of people grow cordyceps on rolled oats. That's got to have a high enough protein. I think that's going to work really well. Also, typically cordyceps likes a lot of liquid culture. It likes a really not a soupy substrate maybe, but it likes wet feet, we'll say. You don't want it to be enough moisture that anything goes anaerobic, but you want it to be a juicy substrate. So that's pretty much the tips I have right now. Now I am working on cordyceps to do a lot more of it, and I'll probably be doing a cordyceps class at the end of this coming spring, based on all the things that I have learned. But that is, the basics that I would go with is, also, you can't keep cordyceps cultures the way that you keep white rot fungi cultures. You have to go to ascospores a lot, and you don't want to just throw it in a slant because they lose a lot of their vigor when they've been stored around for a long time. So you gotta want to reset. Now that said, my systems for like the rapid backups and all that stuff that I do is really good for resetting. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how I can apply my liquid culture systems to cordyceps, because That is something that I have not tried. I have grown a lot of liquiculture over the years, and I am really good at it at this point. So, between nutrition and all kinds of things, I don't think Collier wants to come through. You can come. Well, sometimes the kids don't want to be on the stream. Anyways, let's try something real quick. My screen's gone black. Hello, still there. There we go. Weird. Not that the camera is the important part here, anyways. But anyways, I think I covered the cordyceps liquiculture, right? So, where do you get your filters and injection ports for your bioreactors? If you were in the class, I had a parts list that was emailed to you, and that had direct links to that stuff. If you were not in the class, and I'm sorry, I can't remember very well, but if you're not in the class, I had I get the most of the time from Amazon for the syringe filters, and then for the injection ports, my favorite place to go is Shroom Supply and get the heavy duty. I prefer the heavy duty injection ports because they hold up better than the little gray ones. And a lot of times when people talk about like the self-healing injector port works, but then you'll get like liquiculture sucked in through the sides or something like that around the port. I don't get that with the heavy duty ones the way other people often do with the gray ones. Or even the blue and orange or the pinks or all those kinds of things. So shroomsupply.com. If you use code Mossy at Shroom Supply, I think it saves you 10%. I do not get a kickback for that, actually. It's just a savings to my audience. So I don't really have a reason to plug them other than I like their product. So, but, you know, go over there and give Ryan some business over at Shroom Supply. He's got he's very fast typically, and he's got good products a lot of the time. So, but that is where I get that kind of stuff. But I buy an absurd amount of stuff off Amazon. Amazon has now come down in price, and I can get stuff cheaper on Amazon a lot of times than I can actually get it from the manufacturers or from the distributors, the laboratory distributors. So now there are things that I can only get for a good price from the distributors. So it's all case by case stuff. And if you have my parts list, that's usually the cheapest, best place to get it. If you were, I think I will say that the Amazon links that I put in those parts list were affiliate links because I am an Amazon affiliate and I do get a small kickback from that occasionally. It's pretty minuscule. If I would go back and put it on all my videos and stuff, I'd probably do a lot better with that. But I haven't. The class was indeed a success. Yes. Thank you, Vincent. It was perfect. Thanks again to both of you. Well, thank you very much for being there and making it a success. I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoy teaching with Samantha a lot more than I enjoy teaching by myself. But that said, I enjoyed teaching by myself, so I can do both. But having Samantha there, made it like the first class I did. Woo, I kind of crashed hard afterwards. Just like my mental capacity was done after talking for 6 hours straight. This one with Samantha, like I definitely didn't have a energy spiral or anything like that afterwards. Because she taught about half the time, so which made it a lot easier, I felt like. And then it also gives people a different perspectives because Samantha's hands move different than mine do. Samantha's brain works different than mine does. So it gives people a new perspective. People also got to see, I think, where in that class a certain side of the business, which is they got to see where all the traceability stuff comes from. and where it doesn't come from pretty strongly. And that is, I ain't got time for note taking. I ain't got time for it. But Samantha makes time for note taking because it saves her time later on. And you'd think that my ADHD brain would learn that notes are good, but I have never been a strong note taker. So, not once in my entire life have I been a strong note taker. Oh no, I'm spilling it. But we had a lot of fun. I feel like the aerated was nice. Vincent, the aerated is bioreactors are now 7 days old, and it is ready to use. The Moon Pearls is ready to use. The Tribbles one, or no, it's Wolf Bloom was the other one. That one is right at the edge of being ready to use. You probably could use it as it is right now. It's denser than most liquid cultures you buy online for people, other than me. And most of my liquid cultures get pretty thick, especially oysters. Hericiums do a lot of times as well. Sometimes reishis can be a little thin. Sometimes they can be a little thick. Reishi is kind of an odd one. But anyways, those aerated liquid cultures are going really crazy. And the bioreactors are, like that Moon Pearls one is ready to go. So I've got probably about 15 blocks that I'm going to take and put that liquid culture to bulk to it. And it's chunky. It's very chunky. That's something about my aerated stuff, is that a lot of times it comes out fairly chunky. So it's not as good through the pumps. First class was very cool too, but yeah, I can understand getting drained after 6 hours. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Like, it was like riding a high, and like you come off that class after talking for 6 hours, you're like, that was awesome, that was amazing, that was, oh my gosh, I'm ready for bed. I can't think. I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to play video games. Like, why am I so tired? Why does the world suck all of a sudden? And it's like, I was so happy when I was teaching. Why am I? And it's like, oh, it doesn't suck. It's just, I'm tired. My brain's blown out a little bit. So that's the thing about ADHD, right? We can hyper focus, but it depletes all of our dopamine. So you literally like have a straight up dopamine crash. And I've actually been struggling with that a lot, because I'll work in the lab, and I'm so happy working in my lab. Like, I'm so happy, and I'll come out of it. And sometimes I'll come out of that lab space having worked hours and been on a roll and been so proud of my work. And then I start feeling bad. And I come out, and I'm not saying that this is the case with the class, but I'll come out of the lab sometimes and I'm so depressed feeling, like so tired, so like, what is going on with me? I was happy 10 minutes ago. And I've been working a lot through all that stuff. And it's like, I built a health assistant AI a while back, and it helps me considerably. But one of the sub channels in that AI is a mental health one, where I kind of describe stuff. And what's nice is that it's got access to studies and all kinds of things that a lot of even doctors don't have. I'm not saying that I would trust it more than a doctor, because it'll straight up make up stuff sometimes. But you got to be careful with it. But as long as you're careful to research, right? And so you'll talk about all this stuff, and you're like, hey, I love lab work. I don't understand. And it's like, well, you've got ADHD. And one of the things that this is that lab work requires a hyper focus. Like, it requires you to really monitor every little movement you're doing, how you're breathing, how you're whatever, how you're facing things, how, that kind of stuff. And it was like, plus you probably hyper focus and forget to eat. And I was like, yeah, I totally forget to eat all the time. I'll be working in the lab, and I even have a rule: do not work hungry. But sometimes I'll just like dissociate from my body and not realize that I'm hungry. So you're in the lab and you're doing all these things, and you come out and you're really unhappy. And it was like literally like you're having a dopamine crash. That's really what it is. So you're having a dopamine crash. And it didn't say that exactly. Like, it can't make pronouncements like that. But it was really interesting because it was like, okay, let's start talking about breaks. Let's start talking about ADHDers being sprint workers rather than grind workers, right? And stop trying to work the way other people do. Take frequent breaks. That's helped a lot. here's some food to help. So one of the best things now is I get a really good beef jerky I like. It's called People's Choice. Freaking love that. If you are wanting to get some, let me know and I'll give you a redemption code because I think I'll get a little bit of stuff for getting people onto it. I'll get a little discount on mine. But so you get a high protein food source like this good beef jerky, couple sticks of it. Sit down with a thing of yogurt and some granola, and throw that granola in the yogurt, and then just start chowing away. Like I get out of the lab, trying to before I feel bad, and then I get out and I start chowing down on that stuff, and all of a sudden I feel fueled. I feel so much more fueled, and like it replenishes some of the stuff to help you replenish your dopamine, and give you energy and supportives between a lot of that stuff. So it's, I don't know, it's a big thing, the nutritional side, but also the frequent breaks and getting sensory data. Right in the lab, you're not getting a lot of sensory data. So stepping outside, putting my hands on some logs, or dipping my hands in the pond out there, letting the fish nibble at my fingers, that kind of stuff, like stuff that is full sensory kind of thing is like, okay, so I'm just wired a bit different, I guess. The ADHD requires some of that outdoor time. So, yeah, I'm wired similarly. I get so focused and I forget to eat, rest, and everything gets. Yeah, it's exactly how it is. And it's been amazing to me how much mushrooms have been able to teach me about myself, just doing the work, getting interested, and then that it's weird because it's like you're looking at the mushrooms, but then it's kind of like giving you a reflection that you get to learn about yourself and the mushrooms. It's really neat. Getting into the lab, doing that kind of ritualistic lab work is very grounding and centering, and it's really easy to focus. Wow, what a sandwich. Here. I'm not going to touch it. It's poison, isn't it? Okay, so this is poison. I can't touch it. Oh, it's falling apart. My bad. It's made a banana, apple, peanut butter, and jelly sandwich with honey. Does it got jelly or honey? Jelly and honey? Seriously? That is a deluxe sandwich. You're right. I can't have it because peanut butter is poison. But I had a sun butter sandwich last night, and that's almost the same, right? It's really not. It's good. After you've had sun butter for a long time and that's it, it's really quite satisfying. But it ain't. It's not peanut butter. I used to always just think everyone got itchy throats and a lot of snot whenever they ate peanut butter. But that was not the case, apparently.
Yeah, Andrew ordered break room food for us and the children, the crew, and the kids have been working hard.
I don't think the mic's not picking you up at all. So Spada was talking about everything I got for the break room. I got a bunch of snacks and foods and things like that. Like, again, talking about the yogurt and stuff, because I was like, you know what? Everyone's happier and works better when they're fueled properly. So, but yeah, I have weird swings that can very easily be attributed to the ADHD. And my ADHD has changed since I've become an adult. I can force myself to focus now. So it's not like a lack of focus, but that focus can gone on for too long, or the grind gone on for too long. It's like it can become physically painful if I have to keep stuffing it down. It's like it'll hurt right here. So I don't trust doctors much anymore. You need to see my left. You need to see my left arm after Park West screwed up an IV. Left arm after Park West screwed up an IV. Looked like 3rd-degree burns. Dang. I will say that the last time I got sick and went in, I don't know if they just had the new guy trying to do my veins, but my veins have always been very tricky. I have great big veins, and if you can find them, it's good. But historically, I've had high blood pressure and really thick blood. And nowadays I don't have that nearly as bad, but like legitimately it takes a long, they'll have to sit there and mess with it a lot until they can get it to squirt into those vacuumtainers. And when it does shoot into the vacuum containers, like they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, the pressure!" Like it's coming out like a fire hose now that we've ripped open the sidewall or something. But no, man, I get you. I understand. Like I'm always been one person. I don't trust authority just because it's authority, right? And my grandfather always said, and my grandfather worked with a lot of doctors. He had a lot of health problems, so he had a lot of inflammation and a lot of the same stuff I deal with. But he was very much the kind of person that said, like, statistically, he would sit there and tell you, because he was a scientist himself, though he was a chemist, not a not like a biologist or anything, but he would even tell you, like, statistically speaking, those who take control of their own health care and an interest in their own health care, like they have a vested interest in controlling it, even if you're listening to the doctors and all that kind of stuff, but you recognizing that your healthcare starts with you and ends with you, those are the people that end up surviving the longest and tend to be healthier. And so it's not that I don't trust doctors, because I certainly will listen to doctors, and they have earned a lot of that. They've earned the title, but doctors are people too. So we gotta be in charge of that stuff. But yeah, the last time I went in, that guy he stuck my arm. I mean, I don't remember how many times. He stuck it like a dozen times or more, until eventually another person came in and was like, he's like, I'm gonna go get somebody else to help. And they came in and watched him try a couple of times. They're like, well, that's weird. And then they tried. They're like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, I keep telling you all my veins are weird, and here's how you do it. And then finally they got a more experienced person. She came in, listened to me, did what I said, and then like immediately like found my vein. She's like, oh, there's your vein. Click, got it. Blood came out, filled the container, all was good. And I'm sitting there stuck, like 20 something times. Samantha was about to get up out of her chair and cause some hell, because she was like, I don't like that you're sick and people are just sticking you over and over again. Because my oxygen was down to like 62%. Yeah, she said, am I? She's like, yeah, but so my oxygen was down to like 62% saturation while they were doing it, and every time they would sit there and stick or whatever, like I wasn't coming off. I don't think I was frustrated at all. I was joking with them and stuff, but they could tell by the monitors, because my blood pressure was like shooting up into, what'd you say it was, stage 3 hypertension? Every by the time they stuck me like 20 doses, like stage 4 or something like that. But yeah, I get it. Meetown says there's a massive difference between lecturing to a class and being a facilitator like you to a class where the conversation flows back and forth. Exhausting, but so much fun. It is so much fun. You're right. And I thank you. I appreciate that distinction. I like that distinction, that I'm not a lecturer, but a facilitator. I like that a lot. I've always really disliked lectures, but I always there are teachers that have always really, that grabbed my attention, and those tended to be facilitators. But you're right that kind of work is a lot more exhausting, but it's also a lot more engaging. And if you care, which I do, because mushrooms have affected my life so positively that I want to share, right? In a way, it kind of reminds me of when I was in seminary, and they would talk about being evangelicals and stuff, and like wanting to share. It's like, well, your cup overfloweth. Well, mushrooms have done that to me as well, and so part of me wants to share that mushrooms lifted me and my family out of just abject poverty, and they've helped me a lot with my health care. They've helped me a lot eating good food, but it's almost like I don't know, like what is it? I am more interested in growing mushrooms than I even am in eating them, even though I love eating them. But I'm more fascinated with the growth process. Like, it's so much more satisfying than growing up so many other things. And I'm good at growing a lot of things. Like, I grow plants and bacteria, and Samantha's wanting me to create a company like Mossy Creek Biologics or something. But something where we can go through and sell a lot more than just mushrooms, right? Which I mean we could do on Mossy Creek, I guess, but muddy the waters. But I don't know. The thing is that the mushrooms have just they've affected us so positively, and I was really chaotic, bounced from job to job, that kind of stuff. And the mushrooms are a big part of what settled me into like, oh, I like this. This is so big. The scope is so large. And I did fight teaching for a long time. But I think that's because Me-Town, I did not really think of the difference between teaching and facilitating. I've wanted to facilitate my entire mushroom career. Teaching is something I have a negative connotation for because I did not fit in well in school and with a lot of my teachers. So maybe I just had some negative connotation because of that. I didn't want to teach because, I had some bad teachers. But I also had some good ones. Like I said, Miss Word, she was a great facilitator. Ben and I both had her in third grade, and we both had a similar experience where I came in reading into my third grade class, reading at about a kindergartner's level. And though my parents tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and my teachers too, I guess. But Miss Word took Ben and I from, by the time we were done with her class for the year, Ben and I were both reading at senior and high school level. And that's just because they stopped testing at that level. So we went from being behind by a couple of years to being advanced, really, really advanced. And I think that's probably the kind of teacher I'd like to be, right? She also made us interested in reading. She taught me how to be interested. Samo like, okay, I'm going to try this. Please forgive me if it's terrible. Samo like Podruski. I don't know if I got it right or wrong. You let me know. How bad did I mess that up? Samo like Podruski, my friend. Boyfriend. Well, back to you, I think. I hope so. Man, I'm excited for the holidays. Like, we've already started. We got to watch Home Alone with my parents on Sunday night. And there's a lot of mushroom stuff going on, including Josiah at ET Fungi and I are talking about, especially now that everything mushrooms is closing down. Everything mushrooms is closing down, which is super sad. They announced it today, though I heard about it yesterday. But with them closing down, we're talking about starting up a mushroom club here local. So he laughing. Thumbs up, mushroom chocolate. I don't know what that square is, but that must be like an error. So is the thumbs up because I attempted to say the word, or is the thumbs up because I messed it up so bad? Did you hear me try it? See, it sounded finished, didn't it? We don't know what finished. I don't know what finished sounds like at all. I don't think I've ever heard it. We should watch some YouTube videos, though. I've told him that I want to come to Finland someday. Better start saving some money, yeah. The question is, once I get into Europe, am I going to be able to get back out and get home to my America? All right. Maybe. Can't just kick us out. So anyways, we're talking about starting a mushroom club. This was not in response to everything mushrooms closing. Now, we were talking about this before. We were actually talking about doing it because the Knoxville Mushroom Festival did so well. I spoke at that. And so we were talking about doing a monthly or so mushroom mushroom. Like we thought we might have somebody teach something and then do it as well. And we're not officially announcing anything yet. And of course, it'd be local that we're doing it. But I think it's going to be a good way. We'll host at our farm. We'll host it, at Josiah's. I'm hoping to get a couple of the all the local guys in on it. Just share and share alike. And so I think it'll be an interesting thing, just to be able to do the I don't know, like I want to teach cordyceps and extracts and all kinds of stuff. So log stuff, I really want to teach logs. I have become re-obsessed after learning a lot about how the Japanese do large-scale log culture. I have become quite obsessed with reworking into some logs as experimental stuff. I always wondered how they were able to do it so cost effective. Like, how did it make sense? Because here in America, it doesn't make sense. It's so labor intensive. But in large part, it's because we do too much work for it. They look at the drill and plug method, is my understanding. I don't want to speak for anybody, but as a very amateurish, maybe I should say beginner friendly method, right? But most of their work is just done with chainsaws and axes and crosscut saws and things like that. So it's they're able to get logs grown in a matter of weeks versus a matter of months, and that includes shiitake. So, and I live in the middle of forested land, all around. There are woodlots of forest, and now there is so much development happening. In part because of the new AI facility up at Oak Ridge, but also just because Oak Ridge has been working on sustainable power and all of that stuff. Plus, Knoxville is just booming right now. We're full. Nobody else move here. Do what? Yeah, good luck moving here and getting your water connected. But the one of the things I've been thinking is that with all this land clearance, logs make a lot of sense. Because if you notice that oysters will grow on logs, and logs are unsupplemented, right? And somehow they're able to, a log can facilitate huge flushes of large clusters of oysters. And yet sawdust bags need to be supplemented to produce anything close to that. But also the work with logs is actually a lot less labor than blocks if you do it right. So one of the ways they do is they cut an X in the center of the log. Another is that they do these wedge methods. They do long wedges in some places, though I don't know that I'm going to like that method very much. And then, of course, they do another is the horizontal wedges, so they against the grain wedges, and they're able to basically just zip pack it, and now they don't have to worry about that whole log's inoculated. It might be like an 8-foot log that they inoculate with shiitake, and then they pile them up in windrows typically. Though I think here we're going to palletize them because I can use the forklift to move pallets of logs around. Also the just the pallet jack and everything else. So we're going to do some, we're going to do some log experimentation here and see how economically feasible it is in an area like this. Now, part of it is also the development that we've got. So there's a lot of waste trees. So I can buy loads of logs pretty cheap. $300 for like an entire dump, not like a huge dump truck's worth, but like a mid-sized dump truck or whatever. I'm glad I made you laugh, my friend. I don't speak English, but I truly enjoy watching your videos. Sending you full support from faraway Serbia. Good luck. Serbia, my bad. For some reason, I was thinking you were finished, but that could have been someone else I was talking to. But yeah, thank you, man. Absolutely. You must use a translator app, or we talked about this I think before. I think it pops up for you. Wonder why on a first flush stems will be nice and white, but the next flush the stems look brown at the bottom. Of what, masked mofo? Is there a comment that got held? I don't see a comment that got held. Are you talking about like on logs? Let me know what you mean. But the log cultivation is really interesting. There's some other things that I want to try. I want to try like some direct liquid culture inoculation. I know in spalting, a lot of people inoculate logs with agar, just agar plates for spalting. And that's interesting. I'm not sure that I don't know. I've been wanting to experiment with some of the agar inoculation, but I think that there's ways to do like a direct liquid culture inoculation. I've got some logs, red oak that I cut up and poured some liquid culture into buckets, put an airline to it to bubble it, stacked logs in it, and then added RO water to make sure that the logs were fully covered, or at least every log had an open place sitting in there. And I am seeing mycelial growth in places, so that's an interesting little take. Is these little open vat liquid culture things for logs? It's not a method I expect a lot of good results out of, but it's one that I'm definitely having fun trying. Pardon me. Usually I try to hit that that mute button, but shoebox with cocoa as a log inoculator. Like you could do liquid culture to that and then throw some lugs to that, I guess. The oh, hold on. There's a for some reason it's got a question mark on this comment for me. Oh, okay. I see. It's because you have a question mark in yours. It's literally highlighting. They hadn't been doing that before. So it looks like the streaming software is I know it's had an update because they've got a bunch of AI stuff that they're trying to implement. And I haven't even looked at most of it, but it looks like it recognizes when there's a question and highlights it for me. So that's interesting. Anyways, so there's a lot of cool stuff going on with the experimentation. Teaching is actually where we've stopped doing the in-person mentorships and started doing the online mentorships. Which of course I had already planned on having the holidays free, but I'm beginning to see how having all this time open and not teaching full week-long stuff is actually allowing me to catch up on a lot of things and had me falling behind on a lot of things. So that's interesting because it allows me to still teach, still facilitate, but at the same time, it allows me to reach a much larger audience and then also allows me to experiment more and then bring that experimentation to you guys. Like I've had a lot of people tell me like, I need to just settle on one thing. You itchy, Teddy? Teddy, you itchy, buddy? You need your itch bite? Hey, bud. When Mama comes back in here, we'll tell her to give you your anti-itch bite. The classes allow me to follow that natural inclination to want to experiment, so I can constantly be learning and then constantly bringing that to you all. And there's a financial incentive finally to do so. So, and I know that's a lot of reason a lot of people have pushed me to this, and a lot of people have been asking me to. So, I appreciate you guys pushing me on that. Well, let's talk about everything mushrooms for a minute, because when I heard that they were closing down, I may be a little sad. Those guys have been around since the very first days that I started growing mushrooms. You would go on the shroomery, and that Josiah brought that up when I was talking to him today. That those you would hear about everything mushrooms. That was kind of the place to go to to get stuff very early on, and it was here local, so I got to go in person and did so several times with the guy who first got me into. I first got into mushrooms on my own, but the first person, more experienced person I reached out to, Hugh Brewer. And so I know he used to buy stuff pretty extensively at Everything Mushrooms, and it's the end of an era to see that go. I don't know what Bob's doing next or what, but I know they're selling the building and everything. So, which that's part of. I wonder if it's partly because South Knoxville is blowing up right now, and the value of their building is probably skyrocketed, and so I bet that's probably why they're selling, is just because the value proposition of that is so large. Because there's so much development, somebody's going to want to buy. It's a nice location already. It's a nice little warehouse, and then if you add on to that you've got the ability to sell it to a developer, that makes a lot more sense as well. But you heading out? Okay. Hold on one second, guys. Are you guys, have you done blocks yet? Unloaded? Okay, there's a shelf in the lab. The top, I moved all the grain spawn to the top shelf, and you can just unload on the next shelves. But that shelf can be a little hard, so I want both of you pushing it at the same time. It's in the lab. It's the only, it's the only one in the lab that has grain bags on it. It has them on the top shelf. So the just put it the next one down, the next one down. I pulled one out of the autoclave and I put it on the shelf. You can just start right there and work your way down. Just be careful. Thank you. Love you, Collier. All right, I'm back. Right, sound is on. Mute button worked. Yes. Okay. So, anyways, the everything mushrooms. Yeah, they like. It makes me wonder what they're going to be doing. I know Bob's been in mushrooms for years and years and years. So I think he actually got into it at first, working with the University of Tennessee's mycology program. And that's been another nice thing. A lot of people don't realize how much biology innovation goes on in Tennessee, especially East Tennessee. I think a lot of part of it has to do with the University of Tennessee. They've got a really good biology program, but then they have one of the few mycology programs that I know of in the States. There are a handful, though I think that's changing now. I think there's going to be more soon, or probably already are more. I know that a lot of the plant departments are starting to teach mycology. And then the ag campus, University of Tennessee has got a very strong ag program. So there's a lot of biology work, but also, I mean, we are agriculture and commerce state. That is our state seal is agriculture and commerce. So I think that's one of the reasons why. But you have United States largest or maybe second largest inland saltwater hatchery right here in Jefferson City, which is weird. People come to Jeff City and you drive right by it. You don't even know it's a hatchery because it's in buildings. and then right in our downtown area. And then, of course, you have us. You have everything mushrooms. You have University of Tennessee. You've got all kinds of just spin-offs. You have the Y12 labs up in Oak Ridge, which is, where they first built or enriched the material to make the atomic bombs back in World War II. So yeah, we've just got a lot of weird stuff here, and everything mushrooms I think may have been born as part of that spinoff, though I could be wrong. I haven't spoken to Bob in a long time, so his wife took over the business though, and really, I think started bringing a. She had I don't know. They cleaned up like that front room, made a nice little storefront. We had the mushroom festival there 2 years in a row. I was sick the first time around. This last time, last time I was actually able to teach at it. I think I taught at it right before I got sick. Actually, is what? Did I what? No, I didn't hear anything. Was I supposed to hear something? Okay. Is it something I should wait till after the stream to talk about? Oh, okay. Fair enough. I don't know. She walked out and I don't know. Some noise was made, but it's crazy too. You guys just saw my oldest leave, and he works next door. And guys, I'm at the age where my oldest has recently moved out and has a girlfriend. I'm sorry, a fiance. Yeah, he has a fiance. And yeah, it's getting real weird for me to be at that age. Yeah, I'm an oldie. I'm no longer young and hip and cool. Now I'm old and badass. I've always thought I'd make a badass old man. And I used to think, man, I can't wait to be a badass old man. But now I see how fast time flies. I could absolutely wait to be a badass old man. I want to make every day last forever if I can. But, excuse me. The kids are working on, about to start making blocks. They're running out stuff. Aislinn and Brody work for Moss Creek Mushrooms, which is nice because we're an agricultural service. We're actually able to allow our children to work the farm part here. And I always grow enough to be able to keep our farm, that we are considered a farm as well. But one of the nice things about owning a farm, I believe in Tennessee, but I'm not sure if it's elsewhere, so check your states. But you can work your kids, and they get to make that money untaxed. So it's actually really cool because your kids get to make money, save money for cars, that kind of stuff. You can only work them so many hours because otherwise it'd be child labor kind of stuff. But they're able to work the family farm and add to it. And so every time we have a job like ready to fruit blocks or anything like that, my children are actually ones I go to, and I negotiate with them. Hey, how'd you like $300 for this job or $150 for this job or whatever, and then work them. So it's actually really nice. You should check your states because anyone who gets into mushrooms, you may be surprised at how little you actually have to grow per year. I think in Tennessee it's $1,500 off produce basically per year that you got to make. Literally like by dollar amount. And then you get your farm. You can get your tax-free number. So when you go buy certain things, you can get those things tax-free. So when you buy your oats from Tractor Supply, that kind of stuff. And $1,500 can just be a hobby business, that you run. And then your kids can work it with you. You can pay them whatever, again, there are restrictions on it, but you pay them a certain amount. It keeps the money in the family. Aislinn and I've already talked about this. She's like, I'm putting 80% of everything I make into a savings account, and then I'm getting to spend the 20%. And you know, they don't have to go anywhere or anything unless they want to. Which, and Aislinn's too young. I think. Well, no, she's not too young. She could start working right now at like grocery stores for like 10 hours a week or something like that. But she can work more on a family farm if she wants. So it's something to think about if you guys have kids and farm or you have farm ambitions. Mushrooms are also a really nice way to, because you can grow a lot of value in a very small space. And again, $1,500 over the entire year isn't really all that much when you break it down, you know, week to week. What would that be? So 1,500 divided by 52 weeks, you got to make $30 a week. $30 would actually get you more. That would actually be 1,560. So, you know, but $30 a week, if you can make, sell a couple pounds a week, then you've made enough. And you can do that CSA or Facebook Marketplace or all kinds of stuff. Again, check your produce regulations where you're at. But PayDirt66 asks, what's the best way to find discounted farm equipment like a used autoclave or rolling racks? Well, I mean, a lot of times you can do Google searches, PayPal. One of the things that you've gotten right now is you've got a lot of these resellers out there now. And so a lot of them scan eBay and auctions and all that kind of stuff, and buy that stuff up so that they, you know, there aren't a lot of those options. But some places will do refurbished. Some places, sometimes calling one of the manufacturers, like if you're looking for an autoclave, you could call SH Scientific or is it Midwest that sells autoclaves, or is it like you've got the Blue Myco units? I don't know anything about the Blue Myco units. We talked about installing one here a while back and never did. His itching is flaring up again. Anyways, you can call those places and there will be farms that have sold that equipment back to the manufacturer, or to the resellers. And sometimes they'll have used stuff that's not listed on their website, but you can call and you can get cheaper. Sometimes refurbished units, but usually that's you calling these places for like the autoclaves. Finding a farm that's going out of business or selling is a little trickier. You can look up mushrooms going out of business sale. I know Everything Mushrooms is going to be selling off a lot of their equipment, because I've been asked if I had any interest in some of that stuff. So you could call Everything Mushrooms and say, hey, I heard you're selling out. You know, do you have any autoclaves, used autoclaves for sale, that kind of thing. Rolling racks, you know, if you can find a farm and it's a state or two away, you know, that kind of thing, you can rent a 26-foot truck from like U-Haul and go pick up a whole U-Haul's worth of rolling racks, and it is easily worth it. Because rolling racks are amazing. Facebook Marketplace, if you give it a much wider area, you can look up mushrooms or mushroom equipment. You could, again, type in mushrooms going out of business, mushrooms, a farm for sale. You know, you're just going to have to work with your keywords a lot there. But that's usually a good way. Otherwise, because like a lot of farms will auction their own stuff off or sell it bit by bit. But a lot of times they're calling the established places. So I used to get a lot of calls back in the day for when farms would, you know, people would want to resell their equipment or whatnot, because a lot of people get into mushrooms and then realize they don't want to do it for a living. They'd rather keep it as a hobby. And then some people get into it and realize that the logistics of it are a little difficult, unless you're willing to make some certain sacrifices. And then some people just, you know, they're like, well, I don't really want to, I didn't realize that I would hate doing markets. Some people find markets draining. If you're not a people person, markets can be really draining. Samantha used to be really good at doing market, but then she would come home and she would just be like, I'm going to sleep. My brain's got to shut down now. I have talked and talked and talked and talked. So and Samantha's an introvert, so she would do it and she would enjoy it, but then it would drain her, and so she'd have to power nap. Um, she said that she thinks the fatigue's largely from getting asked the same questions over and over. Yeah, yeah, and that's another thing too. At market, if you ever sell at farmers markets, you will see this. You'll get the same few questions. Hey, or you'll get in the same few statements. Hey, these are too pretty to eat. Oh my goodness, are they coral? Got any of the good kinds? Hey, are these the kind that'll get you high? A lot of the psilocybin questions. A lot of psilocybin questions. But Samantha said she would love seeing the same regulars. And that was the thing, is that you would get regulars built up. Farmers markets start slow, I feel like. It's really not about impulse buys in mushrooms. It's about getting people who love mushrooms and consistently providing good quality mushrooms to them. And you get to know them and their families. Oh, they made Samantha had this one set of regulars, and she was Asian of some sort. I can't remember. Do you remember? She'd make some sort of chili sauce, and then she would come and bring that and gift that to us because she knew that that I and my kids liked. She spoke Mandarin, so she was Chinese. But she would make this homemade chili sauce, and then eventually it was like we would get that as a gift regularly. We would gift her little extra mushrooms or something special that we weren't selling that we usually reserved for ourselves. Like a lot of people, I grow shiitake regularly, even though you guys have probably heard me a million times say that shiitake are not good mushrooms to grow commercially. But I grow shiitake for myself. I don't typically grow it for the commercial sake. I grow a few blocks every week. Sometimes it gets put in the CSAs. Usually it does not. She would get shiitake. You know what I mean? So that's actually got me thinking. And to Baydert, I hope I answered your question correctly. Let me know if you need further guidance. But Anokis are a mushroom that I'm really targeting for a massive expansion in the United States. I think Anoki really hits the American palate well, and in a variety of forms. It is one of the most versatile mushrooms in the kitchen. It readily grows in liquid culture, and it goes from liquid culture to bulk incredibly well with no shaking. It produces mushrooms in the bag, and usually a fair amount of mushrooms. Now, it does need cold, so you would need cold space in the summertime. But in wintertime, we could just grow it out in the warehouse, and we never open the bag until we harvest. And that has turned out to be a really good way. And I'm like, man, I could run an entire farm, and it would be such a low labor farm comparatively to almost everything. It would be one of the lowest labor farms I've ever seen, is to grow enoki and grow them in bags. But there are a few things that I would like to figure out before in fact, I don't even really want to get back into farming just because of how little time I've got, and it would interfere with the teaching. But I think I'm going to publish this method fairly soon, because you wouldn't, no grow room required, just air treatment. High CO2 actually helps the mushrooms, so you don't even need a massive amount of fresh air flowing through for enoki. It's versatile in the kitchen. It grows in about 6 weeks. The biggest downside is it likes cold, and I have some strains of like the Appalachian enoki and the white gold are much more temperature tolerant towards the the higher end. Now, that said, you still want it chilly, but it's not like you can grow the white enoki through the wintertime easily, and then you'd want to grow the goldens and stuff more in the summertime. And the Appalachian enoki I've seen will grow up to right about 70. I think I've seen someone grow it at 75, but your yields are way better if you can get it down cold. Going through that culture library today and reorganizing everything and taking notes on everything that I've got backed up and everything I don't have backed up through the mycologium really reminded me I've got a lot of strains, a lot of really interesting strains that need to be worked with, dialed in, and so many experimental strains to bring out, and a lot of new bred strains. There's a cross between the mother of pearl and the old road, and I have two really just phenomenal and unique strains from that. I've got a King Blue cross with Pathfinder. So I'm bringing a lot of these out, getting them to the strain testers, and then we'll get those released fairly soon. But man, sometimes you get it, you start digging into your library and you forget all the things that you've put back. Let's see, what other new things am I working on? I think that there's some ways that we can industrialize the mushroom growing process a little bit more. Maybe not industrialize, scale up the mushroom process. It's got to scale up if we ever want to get the American mushroom. I don't want to say industry, farming, agricultural system. If we really want to get that to take off and grow, there needs to be some scalable methods, some either ways that we can automate or things that we can cut, that kind of stuff. Kind of like what we talked about earlier with the Japanese and the mushroom log cultivation and how they're able to actually make it way lower labor than blocks and just as productive and just as fast in some ways. Like the shiitake, getting shiitake logs fully grown in within weeks brings that down to the level of blocks, so there's other things that we can learn. I would love to do some traveling to different places like Eastern Europe, Asia, and well, even Western Europe, because they've got some really interesting, like the Dutch system of growing mushrooms is very interesting. I would like to go and study the logistic system for flowers. The Dutch have an amazing logistic system for getting fresh cut flowers like all over the world quick. And I think that is a huge thing that should be studied. Because I really do think that when somebody cracks that, we get some scalability going. But I also want to see farms of all types start taking on. Like, I'd like to see people who start farms eventually get to the point where they can add on block capacity that they can make ready to fruit blocks and sell. Maybe the farm that starts off as an oyster farm, and then they work their way up to scaling up big time. And then once they've scaled up to like a medium-sized farm, they can start providing ready-to-fruit blocks to all the other farms around them that are just produce farms. So that those produce farms can just build a tent or a grow room, and they can pick up blocks or have them delivered from a local production center. And then that person who, if they still want to keep farming, they can sell oyster blocks that they've learned on, that they've grown their business on. Then they can move up into specialties, which you can grow fewer of and get the same, profit margin on. And then you have the block capacity to provide the oysters. In part because mushrooms are such amazing soil generators that a produce farm that wants to grow on as much natural materials as possible, without a lot of agricultural inputs, they can grow a crop. They can literally buy a product that grows a crop, pays for itself and a little more, and then the end result is that their other gardens, their market gardens, get even better. And I think that is such an underutilized thing because it creates income from the customer to the farm and from the farm to the block provider. And that block provider could be selling to restaurants while these other people are selling to markets, or there's a lot of different ways to stack this. And I would like to see a decentralized system of centralized production and distribution for that region. But I'd like to see these decentralized farms and stuff pop up everywhere before someone figures out how to get the oysters through the distribution channels, and which I think is still years away. We also have, excuse me, I have green elf cup, so a spalting strain in one of those aerated bioreactors. And something I've noticed is that green elf cup, which is historically a very, very slow growing mushroom, if you put it in agar or grain or something like that, it grows very, very slowly through solid substrate. But if you put it in liquid culture, particularly aerated, it grows like gangbusters. And it grows way faster. It's still not as fast as like an oyster or hericium or Anoki, shiitake, or anything like that, but it is way, way faster than it's solid. And the aerated is even better. Plus, it creates these little spheres typically, which not every mushroom will create those little boba-looking spheres in the aeration, but the green elf cup absolutely does. And what's cool is that in the high nutrient mix that we give it, it'll produce the green color on the edge of those little boba balls, and so it gives them these green outer layers that you can, like, I really want to find a way to illuminate these things. Apparently, my co-op has already created a under-illuminated aeration setup, and I've been talking about that to Ben for years, and we never have moved on it. But my co-op's got me wanting to do, because I don't think he's got a mass-produced unit for it, but I would love to be able to do an aerated setup that could light up from underneath so it becomes a living lava lamp, like somebody was talking about on Instagram just the other day. And I think that would be so cool. Well, we got any more questions? I'm hungry for questions, guys. I know we've got a low number of people out here due to the holidays, but I'm dying for some questions. I need y'all to help me produce some content, or I'm going to run out of things to talk about. I don't know that I'd ever run out of things to talk about, but think my lungs might be too irritated for a cigar tonight. If I work in the lab for a long time, the alcohol can, even though I've got good airflow, good ventilation, even with the lung scarring that I have, I can get pretty sensitive. There we go. Pardon me. Definitely don't want to be coughing in your all's faces. Well, if we don't have a lot of questions, then I will just talk for a few minutes and show you all some stuff. I want to talk about the golden oyster fear that's out there right now. I know a lot of people have probably seen that, where a lot of golden oyster is coming under attack. Let's see. Add to stage. There we go. So this is iNaturalist, and I want to look up emerald ash borer. Give me 1 second to find the map. There it is. So here's the map. Okay. You guys seen that? You are? Okay, cool. Let's look at the U.S. here. So some interesting places I'd like to point out. It's very much the Northeast is the emerald ash borer sightings on iNaturalist. And see down here in Texas. And you can see it even here in Tennessee, where it's Knoxville. So I'm right here in Jefferson City. You can see emerald ash borers already located between here and Morristown. It's got sightings in Knoxville. Now, granted, it's going to have the thing about iNaturalist is that it's people reporting their areas. But We can look here at Portland, emerald ash borer, and up here in Vancouver. So, and then this Colorado outbreak is something that I'm interested in. So, looking at that, that's the emerald ash borer. Now, you may wonder why I brought that up when it came to golden oyster mushrooms, but so golden oyster mushroom, and here's the map, and mostly in the Northeast. You can see right down here, their sightings. These are mine, so those are my sightings. So Texas, right here around the Dallas area again, though further south as well. Look at this in Colorado, roughly the same spot. A little bit further west, but again, this is stuff that's self-reporting, so we don't know if there's emerald ash borers at every one of these spots. But then you also come up here, and no, we haven't seen golden oyster in Portland yet that we know of, but right here it is in Seattle, between Vancouver and Portland. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to stop smoking. Anyways, that is a very interesting thing to see, in my opinion, that the emerald ash borer and golden oyster invasiveness is roughly in the same spots. And I think that's because we're seeing the emerald ash borer create a niche for that golden oyster to fill. And I don't know that, that makes us less concerned or not. But it is very, very, very interesting to me that we can have that same kind of spread. And iNaturalist is going to be spotty data because it's going to go by interest. There's going to be a few people interested, and some people might only do a couple observations, and then other people might do observations obsessively. I typically use iNaturalist as a way to help identify mushrooms. And I also use it for the mycologium, though I'm way behind on my listings right now. So again, but how many mushroom people, it doesn't, we don't know how many mushroom people might actually be reporting in this area. And so how many people have seen a golden oyster and be like, oh, look at that mushroom, it's so crazy, and they've not seen it? Or how much of this reporting of the golden oyster is because, oh goodness, that's a shiny yellow mushroom. And that's so crazy, I'm going to take a picture of it and put it on there. Yeah. No, it's fine if it's slightly ripped. Yeah. So anyways, if people see a brown oyster that could be a pulmonarius, or it's not supposed to be in an area, or let's say blue oyster. Blue oyster is not typically found in the United States, right? Like, where in the world would we even notice? Because blue oysters, having bred blue oysters and white oysters together, and blue oysters and brown oysters together, you get a wide range of colors, mostly in the earth tones or whites. They might be blue, but they might be blue when they first start out and then turn white. But also, if people are going to see a light blue on a mushroom or a light bluing effect, they may never even notice that's they may never even think to put that on iNaturalist, whereas the golden oyster, I think they would. So I don't know. A lot of these people that are concerned about the golden oysters, I feel like it's a little bit of a fear porn and security theater thing to start, shutting down these farms that are growing golden oysters. When, I don't know, the native area that golden oysters are growing in, the Southeast should be covered in them, not just, a couple little dots here and there. So something to think about. Also, people are, like I said, aren't going to report the if we see the blue oysters and white oysters, like we're producing billions of blue oyster spores and putting them out in the atmosphere, okay, and it's breeding with the white oysters, wouldn't that be affecting the genetic diversity as well of what we're talking about here? Maybe even flattening the diversity. I don't really think that we are. and I don't think that we need to be quite as concerned as what a lot of people um, are. A lot of people are here that there's like 2 studies that have been done. One on the genetic diversity of golden oyster logs, and one on the self-reporting of golden on iNaturalist. And in science, we don't make wide sweeping declarations because of 2 studies that don't have context. So, I mean, nobody's really talking about the correlation between emerald ash borer and golden oyster that I've seen. There's been a couple people. Um, I got a good one, I think, a couple of months ago. I complimented your Dr. Solarian's powder. Compared your Dr. Solarian's powder against my PDA LC 2 months later. From the fridge, I transferred 3 to 10 mils into Dr. Solarian's LC and 3 10 mils into 3 times 10 mils into PDA. PDA didn't take. Dr. Solarian's took off, no problem. So what went wrong? All 3 potato, dextrose, agar, PDA, LC failed. Got me puzzled. Is my PDA, LC dead? I don't know. Try. All of them failed? Have you? Give me a second. Okay, so sometimes an LC won't take to agar. Sometimes it's not super common. Potato dextrose is less nutritive than the Dr. Solarians. You had PDA, is what you said, right? Potato dextrose agar. That's just sugar. Now, it doesn't mean that the LC is dead. Could be the refrigeration, but I guess if you refrigerate both in the same spot in the fridge, and okay, what I would probably do to test this is to do some grain bags or some all-in-ones or some test other than just agar. You could even try and go from liquid culture to liquid culture. So try putting your PDA into a PDA liquid culture and a Dr. Solarians, and then see, does it start taking off in the Dr. Solarians, which means that it's not dead. It's just kind of starved for something. If it takes off into the PD dextrose LC, and the, I didn't mean PDA, but the potato dextrose LC takes off in potato dextrose LC, then it's obviously not dead. But to the potato dextrose agar plates, you could just do both the LCs to the alternate. Okay, so what I would do first and foremost, is if you have any more PDA plates and SEA plates, then I would take your potato dextrose to both types of plates and your Dr. Solarians to both types of plates, and see how that goes. Okay, wait, I see that you said something down here. I'll skip ahead. I'll come back, guys. I mean, 3 times 10 mils into 3 600 grams of brown rice. Oh. Okay. And okay. Interesting. So how do we test that with the rice? Again, you might go LC to LC and see if you can afford to make that much, and do a comparison of, does the PDA wake up in a Dr. Solarian's liquid culture or a PDA liquid culture? So 3 times Dr. SC, okay. 3 times PDA LC failed. Okay. Yeah. So it's 3 and 3. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I wouldn't expect it to die on potato dextrose. A lot of people grow on dextrose to dextrose to dextrose. But Now I will say that the Dr. Solarian's elixir, which is what the SE is there, that stuff is made to be easy to eat. It is high performance, like high biomass accelerant nutrition. So it may be that your potato dextrose strain that you're doing, your potato dextrose variant, is weakened now in some way. And how about this? How about is your brown rice? If you should be able to, if it's on like a filter, if it's got a filter patch, you should be able to smell around the filter patch, and if it's got bacteria or yeast in it, you should be able to tell the difference. Because oysters will put off a smell, and bacteria and stuff will as well. So even if you can't see bacterial colonies growing or yeast, though a lot of times you can, but if you can't see them yet, sometimes they'll be putting off a smell, and you can smell the filter patch. If it's in a bag, you can press down on the filter patch and put your nose near the bag and breathe in. Just try not to breathe onto your filter patch. Just breathe what's coming out. And maybe see if you can smell something bacterial. Because sometimes that LC will look good and have bacteria hitchhiking alongside it. Even with as much quality control as we have, things will still slip through our fingers sometimes, just because bacteria can be pretty sneaky. It's a little sneaky. What's your take on the UK banning the use of turkey tail and cordyceps? I think it's freaking ridiculous. I think it's a money grab. I think it is so obviously a money grab, and shutting down, people's ability to get something like turkey tail is the best. I think it's the best single place to get polysaccharide K, and polysaccharide K in South Korea and Japan is pretty much just used alongside traditional standard cancer treatments, with really interesting statistically relevant data behind it. I mean, the studies I saw showed that it was increasing survivorship of these standard cancer treatments. Like it seemed to help more with the bounce back kind of stuff. Now, of course, I can't say anything, super strong about anything medical or anything like that, since the laws being what they are. And of course, I wouldn't ever want to just put out information I don't know much about, but it's really interesting to me that cordyceps and turkey tail both have been used all in places in the world for a very, very long time, and for it to be listed as a novel food just so that certain registered companies can grow it is just, I don't know, it's just very interesting to me. It does not seem like a free society where that can kind of happen. It's that when I see stuff like that, it both worries me, frightens me, and in fact, we'll even say, and it kind of disgusts me. If I want to be able to take turkey tail tea, I should be able to go buy turkey tail from a farm. If I want to take the extract, I should be able to do so, kind of thing. But what's your take, Protodink? I'm interested in that too. How did you find or notice this correlation? I think you asked that when I was talking about the golden oysters and the emerald ash borer, Barbara. Hey, it's Barbara. And someone mentioned it to me on a live stream, and I don't remember who that was now. Somebody mentioned it to me, and so I started looking it up and looking into it, and realized that it's crazy to me that correlation is so strong but not been talked about. So, yeah, it's an interesting correlation. I don't know what really can be derived from noticing the correlation yet, but that's the way science works, right? Is that we notice a correlation, then we start looking into causality, and then we start figuring out what we know to not be true. Because it's a lot harder to know what isn't true than what is true. If that makes sense. The scientific process is a very interesting one. That was one of the best things I ever learned in school. Though my gramps, being a scientist, made sure to drill that into us as well. How do you introduce new mushrooms to chefs? Do you give them recipes or suggestions, or just let them figure it out themselves? It's a combination. I don't typically give them recipes or suggestions unless they ask or they just say, "Look, I don't know what to do with it." And I'm like, "Well, I can help you with that. I know what a lot of people do with it because I sell it to a lot of people already." Um, or you can say, "This is how I cook it at home." The best way is always to give them free samples because, and I like to give them a full sample. I know it kind of sucks to grow $100 box of mushrooms and then give that $100 box away for free. But giving them 10 pounds of a $10 a pound mushroom should only cost you a few dollars to produce that. And then getting that customer to buy a case a week. If you buy a case a week at $80, that's a little over $4,000 in revenue per year at a, what is that, 85% margin. So probably a little bit closer to 80% margin is an incredible difference. Every restaurant you add ends up adding to your yearly income significantly. Um, the 10-pound box for free, and why to do that? A couple of things is that I never would give them my best and I never would give them my worst when I was doing an introduction. I'd give them about the most average box they could possibly expect. And that way, if it was a little off, it was a little off to them. And if it was, hey, it was their week to get the really, really, really nice box, they were amazed at the really, really nice box. But they were almost always amazed at the average boxes that you could get to them. Some chefs like mixed cases. Some chefs want all of one thing. So whatever format's going to be best for you to sell in is what I would give the mixed cases or give the cases away at. But we found that mixed cases were usually the most popular. And you can then average your cost out. If you're selling $8 a pound and you do a 10-pound box and you stuff 11 pounds in there, still only charge them for the $10 or the 10 pounds that they are asking for, and it'll always just throw in a pound or two extra. And then you have this free case sitting in your kitchen, and you may forget about it, right? And if you could just give them a cluster, they may cook it for themselves. They may not. They may just forget about it. But eventually, like a day or two, they're going, oh, shoot, we have 10 pounds of mushrooms for free. If we do a special on these mushrooms, that's pure profit today, right? And then when they do that pure profit and they see how well it does, they go, if I can make all of this money off a $100 case of mushrooms, they're a lot more likely to buy that $100 case of mushrooms or that $80 case or, whatever you're doing. And so that's the way I would normally do it back when I was selling commercially. So is to just give them that full 10-pound case and trust them to figure it out on the 10-pound case. And again, they've got Google just like we do. But and you can, if they ask you or they tell you they don't know how to use it, you can offer to help them or you can give them recipes or whatever you've tried. But they're running a business, so if we did something really laborious at home, they're not going to want to do that. Honestly, one of the best things in the world was to tell them to deep fry them. Deep fried oysters at the Appalachian there's like this kind of, I guess it's like a mayo dip or something like that of some sort. I don't know if it's actually mayo. It's kind of creamy though, the way that would be. It's got some spice and stuff to it. Man, you just tear off these hunks of. They take whole King Blue clusters, I think is what Josiah was saying, and deep fry these things. Or maybe pull them apart, batter them, and deep fry them. And then, you sit there. Man, it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. And that's so quick and easy for them to do. And so, you can help them with I need low labor, easy ways to cook these things for the chefs. Smoking. I like to smoke oysters I make a little aluminum foil boat. But a lot of chefs will have smokers that they can easily smoke those mushrooms in. And the nice thing about mushrooms is that you can't really overcook them as long as you don't burn them. And the more you cook them, the more, the better they get typically. And so they lend themselves really well to smoking and deep frying and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that's the basic way I would do it, is just give them the free product. It hurts one time to give them free product. And then after that, it could be a very sweet relationship. Because if you're doing farming, the one thing you got to be interested in is long-term relationships. Um, that is farming 101 basically, is that you're growing a crop. Crops take time. You need buyers at the end of that crop cycle. So, and even for us, I mean, mushrooms are a high velocity crop. Um, we grow really quick turnaround times compared to most crops, and we have a much higher margin than most crops. But you still have, let's say I'm growing commercially. Then you start getting your nets, your net payments. So things like you're going to have to pay everything up front to get the supplies. You're going to have to pay all the labor up front, and then your mushrooms will sit in there until they're ready. Then you pay all the labor of putting those in the grow room, caring for them, growing them, harvesting, buying the boxes, etc. And then you get them to the restaurants. You get the delivery fees and all that stuff, right? But then, or price cost. But then you have a lot of restaurants want to pay you on a net 30. So now you deliver those mushrooms. Now it's going to take a month before you're paid. Now you can focus on cash on delivery restaurants, and you can tell them that you prefer that, and some of them will do it. But a lot of times the bigger, better guys are going to take 4 cases a week, 6 cases a week, that kind of stuff. Those guys are going to want to pay on a net 30. So now, yes, it's taken you a month to get the mushrooms from beginning to end, and you've paid for everything up front. Now you're going to get paid last, because all that value's got to come back down to you. This works best when you have long-term relationships to work with. So, you're not just getting a chef to get them to buy mushrooms one time. You want to interest them in you want to put it into a perspective for them that you're interested in a long-term relationship, and it's then their best interest to want a long-term relationship. So, another thing that you would have to deal with when selling to restaurants would be herky-jerky ordering, right? Where they're going to want 1 case this week, and that sold really well. So next week they're going to want 4 cases. And you're like, dang, this is great. They're going to buy 4 cases a week. No, not necessarily. They might want to go down to 2 cases next week. And so you got a lot of herky-jerky kind of going on. If you can say, look, instead of buying 1 case, this week, 4 cases the next, 2 the next, 4 the next, and then 1 the next, that kind of thing. Instead of bringing me back and forth, how about you just buy a couple of cases a week or 3 cases a week? Because this is your average, right? So let's just get you your averages out. And what that'll do is that'll help me provide for you. If you will commit to that, and now this is going to take some math on your part, but you, chef, if you will commit to buying 2 to 3 cases a week, you can always ask for more, but never buy less than like the minimum here that you agree to. That tells me that I can put a certain amount of blocks in my grow room on a certain amount of shelves in my grow room. So you're not really buying mushrooms from me. You're renting real estate in my grow room. And once you have chefs kind of, on that, a lot of times they'll go, oh, okay, that sounds great. Let's do the average. Let's buy a steady amount. And then you can just say, look, anytime I've got extras, I can offer them to you. And if you want them, you can take them or not. But I had like 80% of my grow room in weekly orders, and then a 20% flux that I could play with, take to market, sell to people, sell to chefs. So like every single time I would text. So I had my chef list text, and I had, of course, don't do a big group text, just do a list. And then I had my chefs that were chefs that would like special chasers kind of thing, where they would only buy mushrooms when they wanted to do a special. But then I had people that had me on the menu and they're regularly kind of thing. And what you do is when you grow more and you've got your extra mushrooms, I could offer that to all of my chefs who were on the weekly list. And then whatever was left over, I would take to my chefs and I would just text them, hey, I've got this. I need to know by this time. By the time that if it rolled around and they hadn't told me, I would go ahead and take it to the list of the guys who were, would just buy occasionally, and I would offer it to them. And then, of course, if I had anything else, which, I mean, we had a CSA, so we always had a mix of CSAs, and because they paid in advance, they got they got their mushrooms first before anything that got offered out, of course. So, you know, you can kind of build these little tiers and just work them, just make them real easy to work with, whatnot. I just hope that idea or policy doesn't come to America. Talking about the banning of turkey tail and cordyceps. Yeah, I really don't want that to be a thing. Um, there for a while, the mushroom forager certificate thing became really popular in like North Carolina. I think it started in South Carolina. I think Trad Cotter started that. But it started to come to Tennessee. Like I think it hit Georgia and North Carolina and maybe Virginia. But it started coming to Tennessee, and then one of my friends down in Chattanooga, who ran a mushroom farm back then, she now runs a fig farm. But she ran a mushroom farm back then, and went to the state senate when they were talking about this, and was like, "Are you guys kidding me? Like, have you looked up any of the statistics? Have you seen how many mushroom poisonings there are? Have you seen any of the mushroom poisonings from restaurants? Like, why are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Look, I'm like, it's not that mushroom foragers are going out or, you know, then they're trying to poison people or that they're playing real, you know, loose with the rules. You can see by the fact that mushroom poisonings are incredibly low that people aren't playing around with that stuff. And in fact, me as a mushroom forager, the last thing I want is to poison someone because I got to sell mushrooms next time. And if I poison somebody, I'm not selling mushrooms ever again, right? So, and so the Tennessee just kind of threw that out. But I would say, like as far as legislation is concerned, it's like Tennessee and the UK are just worlds apart. I'm not saying that there should never be legislation on stuff, but the I sure am not a huge fan of it. So it's something I hope that doesn't come to America either. But I think that there could be, it could be introduced, but I think it would be introduced in a state by state basis. I think a federal enforcement, unless it came through the FDA as the enforcement agency for that, unless it came through there, I don't know that we would be able to have a problem. But also, like, you know, that sucks. It would suck if they did that, but I've got turkey tail cultures. I can grow my own, you know, and if I can't sell it, that's sad and sucks, but there's other mushrooms I can grow and sell. So, you know, it's not necessarily going to hurt people. It's businesses, I don't think, unless they just based it entirely off cordyceps, or that's another thing though, because it would hurt people, you know, like Con Park, who's a commercial grower. You know, it would hurt terrestrial fungi, it would hurt mycosymbiotics, it would hurt. Though I would say that teaching how to grow would be very interesting, and then selling the liquid culture probably is still a viable thing. So if you can teach people to grow and let people grow, you know, and they're interested in it, they may just have to grow it themselves, but you make kits or an easy way to do it and you don't sell it as a food source or extract, that'd probably be the way to go, you know. So if you see it coming to America, maybe position yourself as a person that can put together a kit that's so easy, anyone can do it. You let them do the kit. It's like you can make the substrate and you can make the liquid culture. You know, and maybe the moment you put those together and sell it, that's a problem. But if you sell them the two pieces and let them put it together, all of a sudden that's no longer a problem because they took on the risk themselves, kind of thing. I don't know, kind of like the way they do electrical kits, where they do everything on one side and then send you a pigtail and have you hook up the pigtail to the power supply. That way, you know, they don't take on the risk for that because it's a kit. I remember you guys going more into wholesale. Is there a reason you went away from that business model? I mean, I just moved up. So I started, you know, doing the mentorships. So I've just kind of moved up the food chain into the supply side of things. Sometimes, Samantha and I look back at that because we were working the least we had ever worked in our entire lives selling to restaurants. We worked the least we'd ever worked and made the most money profit-wise we've probably ever made our entire lives. So, and it was at least the most steady income I've probably ever had. And I think I was working 18 hours a week. Samantha was working 18 hours a week. We had 2 part-time employees, each working 20 hours a week. And we were pulling in a very tidy income. But it just got down to the point where I was teaching a lot. I was doing mentorships. I started teaching a lot of people. One of the first people to ever take a mentorship here was Josiah of ETE Fungi, and he's got a warehouse now that's gigantic. It seems like mine. And then the Brody walked and then stopped. Anyways, boy, that really kicked off my ADHD. That was a really good. Do what? It is nice to hide behind the tree. Josiah took the mentorship and then started his own farm, and now his farm, he's got basically the same size warehouse as what I've got, but he's filling it to the brim with grow rooms and block production facilities. But before then, like, he just started, growing a lot more mushrooms. And Samantha and I were talking, and I was like, we've got these people that we've taught to grow mushrooms. We're starting to sell so much online stuff that it's actually becoming really difficult to keep up with both sides of the business. What if we move out and like every week we produce a little bit less mushrooms, and we tell Josiah, here's 3 restaurants we're going to drop this week. Here's whatever this week. And so we basically backed out and fed him restaurants while he grew, and then we just went entirely online. Supply, genetics, that kind of stuff. Didn't realize liquid culture resellers were going to be such a thorn in our side there for a while, which they're not really so much now. But what? It did align more with our interest, and that's a good point. Is that for me, it was never about seeing how many mushrooms I can grow. Like, I liked the grow room, but and it was kind of nice to see everything. Like, I still get excited about seeing stuff in our grow room, but the thought of running dozens and dozens of employees and huge grow rooms did not excite me as much as being back in the lab and putting spores together and then going, what is this thing that just grew? Like that was way more up our alley. And so, it's like the idea of getting back there and playing in the lab is a lot more appealing and a lot more what we wanted to do. Like, I was talking to Josiah, and Josiah's like, look, I don't want the lab work. You can have that. He's like, I don't want anything to do with that kind of stuff. And I was like, good, because I don't want to be growing, a factory's worth of mushrooms. That's just not what I'm interested in, even though I think like the visuals of that are so super pleasing and cool. But the truth is that I like working with the microscopes and the cameras and the spores and the little devices I get to build and tinker around with life in the lab kind of stuff. So that was really that was the big thing for me, was that that's more the way I wanted to go. The YouTube channel had made that possible. Josiah was growing, so we just backed out of the wholesale. Hey, yo, how are you guys? What's up, Jacob? Good to see you, buddy. Hope things are going well. The what do we got here? We had a golden oyster discussion, I guess shortly before you jumped on here. That's an interesting take. I wonder how many people in Mongolia would use iNaturalist, and if there would be any listings of golden oysters on the iNaturalist over there. So for those of you guys who don't know, though, he may not want me telling. I don't know. Jacob is in Mongolia, which is, to me, one of the more interesting places I've heard of people growing mushrooms. Things are not going too badly. That's good. I like to hear that. Golds are apparently known to be here. Okay, cool. So they are a thing there. I mean, that's supposed to be the natural range, is what I've heard, is like Mongolia, Eastern Russia, Northern China, I don't know, kind of that range just in general. So, though I will say, Jacob, I've been on for like 2 hours, so I was going to be getting off here in about 5 minutes. Let's look it up real quick. Share screen. Okay. We're going to go golden oyster mushrooms. Going to go to the map. Hey, remember. Here we go. No sightings on iNaturalist, though. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. Though it looks like it is found in Japan. And over here on the mainland. I don't see anything in South Korea. Do see it in Taiwan. So that's interesting. Now, part of that may be like we probably would see it in China more. But I don't wonder if iNaturalist is very common in China. It makes sense since Taiwan's got stronger Western ties that it would have iNaturalist. Let's see. Right here in a national park. Oh, come on. I want to click it. I just want to click it. Okay, that's a nice photo. Maple leopard. Does that pop up? It does pop up. Okay, cool. Sometimes this thing doesn't capture windows. But yeah, that is obviously a golden oyster. So that is a very different looking golden oyster than what I'm used to seeing here. So fascinating. Now if we go back to the map, what would be close to Mongolia but would have Western ties? Don't know. Is this an island? It is. Oh, that's growing on a bag. Okay, so that's domestic. Funny. A very old sample from the 80s dried is in the biology center. Oh, that's cool. But no recent records of it has been here. So how far we are? So yeah, see how far you are. It's very dry. You get the mountain ranges, I guess, in between the sea and you guys, right? So it makes for very dry conditions. But it looked like you guys had some forest land up there, in places. Unless that green was just the grassland. Maybe I'm just not used to seeing grassland on the maps since we do it here local. But well, shoot, I'm glad things are going well for you. I'm hoping to do a Discord chat in the next couple of days before Christmas, so I'll make the announcement. Hopefully, a day early, so that you can make sure to be there if you want. But I'd love to see you there. But yeah, I think I'm gonna probably jump off since I've been on for 2 hours. Well, hello there. Merry Christmas from Del Norte, Colorado. Well, Merry Christmas to you and yours. I'm very excited about the holiday. Yeah, man, it's high time to bring the Discord chats back. So I've been meaning to do them for a while. Thanks, Andrew. Happy holidays, much family. See you in 2026. Oh, I'm going to do one more live stream before the 2026. It'll be after Christmas, probably the day after Christmas. I'll do a live stream. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. See you, Jacob. I'll let you know again on that Discord chat for sure. What's up, Mr. Greenfingers? I didn't know you were on. One love indeed. Y'all have a good one. Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy your family. Have a happy holiday. And hopefully I'll see you guys. I know everybody will be busy with Christmas, so if I don't see you before then, have a happy New Year as well. Ooh, I wonder if we could do a New Year stream. I wonder if anybody would be interested in that. That'd be very interesting. I'm going to grow mainly lion's mane at home. My wife loved the oysters. I had just start doing lion's mane when her cancer came back. Yeah, dude, lion's mane's that's one of my my one true love as far as mushrooms go these days. So, but yeah, guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hopefully, I see you before then. If not, we'll see you. So, keep finding culture, y'all.
Step into the lab, lights hum like a starship dock. Pine logs stacked like data banks in a cube block. I calibrate climates while the timeline bends. Writing fungal code loops only mycelium sends. I navigate ecosystems with instinctive precision. Every egg played a portal to a parallel vision. Mentorships spin up like reactors at dawn. You want a culture revolution, then you better respond. We fracture the boundaries of the natural order. Make Reishi bloom sideways like a space-time border. I'm an Appalachian alchemist, wild ridge born, with a druid's intuition and a mind full of spores.
Keep spawning culture.
We're the network underfoot, the unseen sculpture.